This is your World War III update. So I'm in part of the Canadian Prepper.com warehouse today, and appropriately so because the price of everything is about to skyrocket. Okay, 25% tariffs across the board comes into effect tonight at midnight. If Trump is true to his word, which I'm not entirely sure he is, but his press secretary today said that indeed these tariffs will be imposed by February 1st at midnight, I presume. Now, there was some rumblings earlier that maybe it was going to be postponed to March 1st, but the White House denied that. So it looks as though it's about to go down. And what this means is that we're entering deep and dark recessionary times. Understand what's about to happen. This day, this month, this year will go down in history as officially delineating the transition from a unipolar world to a multipolar one. This is it. Shots are being fired in all directions, not just Canada and Mexico and Panama and Greenland, but they're going after the semiconductor manufacturing facilities in Taiwan as well. 100% tariffs on chips in some sort of attempt, I guess, to encourage TSMC to onshore their chip manufacturing into the United States. But what it might actually do is potentially compel them to move towards China. But who really knows at this point? Regardless, what you need to understand as Canadians is that life is going to suck. I'm going to try to break down what exactly is about to happen, okay? So Trudeau is loving this. The Liberal government is going to love being able to execute whatever sort of emergency powers that they can conjure and dangle the carrot of some sort of monthly stipend that they're going to pay out to everybody who loses their jobs as a result of these tariffs. So understand how this works, because I read an article today that said 47% of people don't know what a tariff is. So when Trump says, I'm imposing tariffs on Canada, that means that Americans are going to pay 25% more for Canadian goods and services, which will disincentivize them from doing so unless they have no other choice, I suppose, and they have to do so anyways, and then passing that on to U.S. consumers. So this could still work out in a myriad of ways, but the thinking is that that's going to reduce imports from Canada. It is going to spur on industry in the United States, which apparently they believe that they can manifest pulp and paper mills very quickly down there, perhaps overlooking the fact that it takes a lot of years to get these things online. I probably would have expected some transitionary period, maybe 5%, 10%, but no, right to 25%. Maybe they're going to be relying on the entrepreneurial prowess of Elon Musk to build out this industrial infrastructure that they're going to need to make up for the shortfall imposed by these 25% tariffs. But the 10% on oil is significant because, well, it may discourage oil refineries in the United States who do rely on Canadian oil. Some of these facilities only use Canadian oil. The U.S. gets about 20% of its oil from Canada. And yeah, a lot of that is exported as well, but a lot of it is refined in the United States. So this means that the price of oil is about to go up. So the price of things is going to be immediately felt in the United States. And then not too long after that, a lot of people in Canada are going to lose their jobs. They're saying that between 500,000 to 1.5 million, I think, people, that might be a little high, but could potentially be out of work as a result of this. Now, there's only 40 million people in Canada. I presume maybe 20 million are elderly, infirm, children, people who aren't in the workforce. So that's a very big chunk of our working population, and that is going to be a socioeconomic nightmare for a lot of people, okay? The shit is going to be hitting the fan, but in a slow grind, less exciting way than is depicted in Hollywood. But this is absolutely going to be leveraged by the Trudeau government, if you can call it that at this point in time, the lame duck as he is. Who knows, maybe he'll pipe up once again once he gets to invoke these emergency powers that will enable him to debase our currency and print more money to dangle a carrot in front of people who are going to be very desperate, and they're going to be scared to vote for the Conservatives, who might take away that monthly payout. Now, I hope that Canadians are smart enough not to fall for it, but I suspect that that's what's going to happen here. Okay, I suspect that he wants this to happen. I know that's hard to believe, but I do suspect that they're potentially, that scheming part of their brain, which might be fairly significant with that crowd, is thinking to themselves, this could be a way to win back voters. Don't vote for Pierre because he could potentially take away your monthly stipend that we will provide you in order to help you get through these tough times, which of course is what some people is saying is a segue into some form of universal basic income that they might be bringing in down the road. But there are $3.6 billion in goods that transit the Canadian and American border bidirectionally, and this trade could potentially be brought to a halt. We get all kinds of food products from the United States, which likely, if the Canadian government does in fact impose countermeasures and counter tariffs, we're going to be paying a lot more for that stuff, okay? But even if we don't, it's one of those rising tides raise all ships type situation, only in a bad way. You know, if the Americans start having to pay more for stuff, that's going to make its way to us some way, somehow. So it appears as though it's happening, guys. It's going to start tonight, and it's not going to be good. 80% of Canada's oil and 60% of our natural gas go down to the United States. We have a massive oil industry in Alberta, and Trump made that exception because he knows that we already give it to him at a discount, so that 10% that their refineries are going to have to pay in addition to the discounted price that they already pay is going to basically make it so that they're getting the oil at spot, I presume, for the most part. So it's still going to be economically viable for them to import Canadian oil. Because understand, in the broader geopolitical picture, they still got a war with Iran that they want to fight. And they know that they can't disrupt the flow of oil, but there's got to be all this tough talk and bluster. And don't believe for a second that this has anything to do with border security. There's a NAFTA agreement between the United States and Canada, which states that you can't impose tariffs, okay, in either direction unless it's a national security issue. So they make up this bullshit issue about the border, how fentanyl's coming over. When did the elites ever care about people dying in the streets on fentanyl? They simply don't. This is just the excuse, the Trojan horse, if you will, in order to basically impose tariffs for the purpose of a trade deficit, okay? Now, I think that they're trying to shore things up, and it feels as though they're trying to batten down the hatches because they know the big one is coming. The big war is coming. All this stuff with Greenland, you know, which is for the purpose of dealing with Russia, the Panama Canal, which for the purpose of dealing with China, the Taiwan chip manufacturing company tariffs, where they're going to be about 100% for the purpose of dealing with China. You know, everything, the missile shield, all of that stuff, it's getting us ready for war. The repatriation of gold, which is at levels never before seen in New York in 33 Liberty Street in the Federal Reserve Bank, where they're bringing back gold from London, which is held in the London Reserve Bank there, at record levels, okay? And it's creating all sorts of chaos in the COMEX market. We have another all-time high for gold today in Canadian dollars. Once again, the dollar showed some strength proportionate to the Canadian dollar today. So in American dollars, I believe we finished out the week at a record high, but in Canadian dollars, it's actually an all-time record high in terms of the price of gold. So this is what's going down. We are now entering a brave new world where everything is going to change, and for the worse. And I think they can only do it with somebody who has the backing of an ideologically motivated base like MAGA, okay? Because you couldn't do something like that. They knew they had to make this transition. The 36 trillion and all that, it has to crash, okay? So I think they're going to do it now. I've always said they're going to crash it on Trump's watch because he has the ideological base to be receptive to that age-old, you know, how they say don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. We're not in a position to be receptive to that message anymore, except MAGA might. They may be willing to endure some hardship for the sake of reindustrializing the Americas. But of course, what this means is essentially it amounts to a global form of communism, because tariffs, I believe, are very communistic. They're antithetical to free market principles in many ways, because you're saying that because you can't compete in the sense of producing as many cars as China, producing as many good chips as Taiwan, producing as much lumber as Canada, that you have to impose tariffs to discourage people from getting that at a discount. So this is very much inflationary. So that's what people need to understand. In the United States, you are going to pay a lot more for stuff. Okay, it's just how it is. That's why everybody's scrambling. The COMEX is going nuts. They're bringing back the gold. The price of gold is probably going to skyrocket. So is silver, I presume, but that's not financial advice. Shit's going to go down. And it's all related to the broader geopolitical picture. Have you noticed something? Have you noticed that the liberal media's Trump derangement syndrome seems to have been medicated for some reason? I mean, Trump is giving them so much opportunity. He's making all of these polemical decisions, these very contentious decisions, which on any other year, the media would have been all over it. Trump this, Trump racist, Trump that. I mean, you're seeing the obvious thing with Elon, but you're not seeing it when you go on CNN or ABC, even though he's giving them all kinds of material. They're just quiet. Did you notice that? It's because they're on board. This is an empire in its death throes. Okay? Understand that. And for some reason right now, they're trying not to rock the boat. Now, some people might say it's because they're scared, and that's not a good thing either. If the media is scared to criticize the president, that's something that people should think about. Remember, absolute power corrupts absolutely. But I don't think that's what this is. I think they secretly are on board with whatever is happening right now because they know that something much bigger is coming. It feels as though we're battening down the hatches to go to war with the world. That's what it actually feels like. What form it's going to take, how we're all going to be impacted. I know one thing is that it's almost a guarantee that things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. Growing a garden is not going to be something for just hobbyists. It's going to be something that's essential soon, especially if you live in Canada. You need to go back through our Blue Strip videos and learn. And I know you're rolling your eyes right now. Just give me the news. Listen, it's going to come down to survival. Even if you are a person who is upper middle class, okay, it could get very difficult. And it is going to, there's going to be a point where the cost of food, the labor that you have to do to actually garden, the reason why people don't garden is because it's work, right? Well, there's going to come a point where that hour of work that you do in the garden might be worth $100 because that's how much that produce is going to actually cost us, most of which, especially in the wintertime, comes from down south, California. That's where we get a lot of our fruits and vegetables, right? So this is something that everybody needs to be ready for, okay? Impacted commodities specifically are going to be softwood lumber, dairy and agricultural products, steel and aluminum, automotive, food, consumer products, the whole 9 yards. I don't know how this is going to affect us in terms of shipping down to the States. We ship down to the States. Are people going to have to pay some kind of, duties? Possibly. I don't know. I don't think so because most of our products are either made in the United States or originate there in the first place. But you never know. But all I say is just stock up what you can on things, because I think the only way they're going to be able to perhaps give people some temporary relief, and only temporary, is if they debase the currency some more and they turn on the money printers again. And that's exactly what they're going to do in Canada. They're going to start to print more money. And The Canadian dollar, we don't have the luxury of being the universal reserve currency and the global credit card that people still want into our markets. If the US imposes tariffs on Canada, who's going to want to invest in Canadian industry? Who's going to want to invest in the Canadian dollar as we see it sink like a stone relative to US dollars? It could get really ugly. We are already at pretty much, I don't know if the dollar's at record lows since the Great Recession, but we're almost there. We're like a day away from that, okay? In terms of US CAD parity, it is not good right now. So we're going to see higher consumer prices. We're going to see lots of inflation. We're going to see it not in the money printing inflationary sense. We're going to see price inflation. But I believe that the money printing will come shortly thereafter, and we'll get real deal inflation of the money supply. We're going to get reduced competition in our markets up here. We're going to get supply chain disruptions, lots of economic uncertainty, and all the rest. So this program that the Canadian government is going to bring in, which is going to subsidize wages, and they're going to say, oh, we're going to retrain you and do all this reskilling stuff. And maybe this is how they set us up for widespread automation and universal basic income. I don't know. It might be. But they're going to say, hey, this is just short-term financial aid. So anything above and beyond employment insurance, right? That's what they're going to dangle in front of us, because we're potentially talking about 500,000 to 1.5 million jobs, and that's a lot of voters. If you have those 500,000 to 1.5 million people, and they got spouses and they got family members who are also going to vote for the Liberals because they're worried about having their allowance pulled, again, I think Canadians are smarter than that. And you guys know how I feel. All I care about is taxes and guns. So, because I know everything else is screwed and everything else is just a pointless platitude at this point in time. I know that's kind of black pill, but it is what it is. Hey, I'm a prepper. What do you expect? But consider that the price of commodities this year have already drastically exploded. Look at cocoa, 134%. Coffee, 100. What are we going to do without coffee, guys? They're going to have to drop that one or people are going to lose their minds. 100% coffee price increase. Natural gas, 50%. Gold, 40%. Thank me for that one. Silver, 40%. Not quite 40%, but it's getting there. Aluminum, 16%. Copper, 11%. And I actually think copper is, I don't want to give any financial advice, but because of this whole AI craze and the chips and all that, I think those things, copper, silver, gold, all essential in that process. Cattle, beef, corn, pork, everything going up. Chickens, you name it. I mean, eggs, like the price of eggs is just absolutely obscene. In terms of the list of products that are going to get more expensive here in Canada, avocados, tomatoes, bell peppers, cucumbers, limes, mangoes, bananas, grapes, corn, and basically just think of a food. It's probably going to get more expensive when the Liberals impose countermeasures. Now, just other news today, I'm just going to be very brief about this because we're not going to do the around the world thing, but the notable things that have happened today, I guess, as the time of making this video, I just got a notification that unfortunately there's been another plane crash. So I think I don't know. I don't know how severe that one was, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to be related. They're going to blame it on DEI. That's the scapegoat for everything nowadays. DEI. Everything that goes wrong in the collapsing system that's the result of, decades of financial mismanagement is just now being blamed on DEI. All I'll say is try not to get sucked into these political scapegoating tactics because they don't have your best interests in mind, okay? China is building the largest military base, a massive fortress, which is much bigger than the Pentagon. A secret command center is being constructed southwest of Beijing, spanning 6 square kilometers and hosting elusive bunkers to protect the top brass in case of a conflict, including, and not limited to, nuclear war. Putin arrived at the Kremlin in the middle of the night just a couple of hours ago. Of course, their time, it's nighttime. Earlier today, he held a meeting with the Security Council. These deleterious effects that these drone attacks are having on their oil and gas infrastructure that, of course, are the result of Ukraine are likely taking their toll, and I think it's do or die for a deal with Russia in the United States. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't hear something within the next week, that there has to be some sort of progress made in terms of peace negotiations, because if not, I think Putin is going to do something drastic, like use another Orezhnik missile, possibly even do a demonstrative nuclear strike. It's getting to that point where they are completely destroying Russia's oil and gas infrastructure, and it's only a matter of time before it starts to really start to sting. Marco Rubio today, I believe he indicated that they're not going to let Ukraine go, but that's usually what U.S. policy says before they actually abandon one of their vassal protectorates that they, have encouraged to try to attrit one of their central peer adversaries like the Russians for so long. That's usually what they say before they abandon them, is we're not going to leave. I remember, in fact, Afghanistan was the exact same thing. Biden said, hey, we're not going to leave, and then within a month they were gone. And we've seen those people hanging off of airplanes. So that's what's going to go down. Iran has basically issued a threat. They've said, and remember yesterday, Trump made a veiled threat that we are going to bring back the U.S. embassy to Iran, which of course was a way of saying that we're going to do regime change, because they know in the regime's current form they would never allow a U.S. embassy back in the country. Now, Iran has responded today saying that, we can make nuclear weapons very quickly, and in fact, an attack on Iranian nuclear facilities would be one of the biggest mistakes the U.S. could make. Tehran will respond immediately and firmly if its nuclear facilities are attacked, which will lead to a full-scale regional war. I think the only way they're going to take out Iran is if they do it from the inside, is if they are some way able to do regime change. But I doubt that's going to happen, because most people don't know, but Iran has a militia, which is something like 6.5 million people strong out of a 85 to 90 million strong population. And these guys are solely tasked with the purpose of protecting any sort of military uprising in the country. Now, we have seen some very asymmetrical style decapitations take place with Lebanon, not with Hamas, I should say. They haven't been able to do it with them, but that's because of the hostages, right? So that was actually a 4D chess move on Hamas's part. But with Iran, that's the only way I can see them being able to execute some plan that would take out the theocracy there, whilst minimizing the outcome for the broader region in terms of oil and gas. Because if you attack Iran, Iran and its proxies are going to light up the Middle East oil and gas refineries. And that's going to be bad for the price of oil, especially when you're tariffing Canadian oil. So they don't want to do that just yet. But anything, we're just in January here, okay? So anything is possible in February. A Russian ship was stopped in the Baltic. I do believe that there's going to be some action in the Baltic states in the coming weeks. They're just, every other day there's a ship that's being boarded by NATO military, of course, that belongs to Russia's shadow fleet. They claim every other day there's another cable that gets cut. It's only a matter of time before something happens, and there was a close brush-in today with an Su-24 Russian plane and a F-18 plane over the Baltic Sea. In terms of the COMEX gold situation, why the price of gold is skyrocketing, it's anybody's best guess. But one of the best guesses, I think, is that over the last few months, sealed wooden boxes have been arriving in the holds of commercial flights from London to New York, strapped up and tightly packed against tampering. When they land stateside, they are collected by trucks whose drivers generally don't know what they are hauling. This is from Bloomberg, by the way. It's highly, highly unusual, Philip Newman, industry veteran and founder partner of the consultancy Metals Focus, said. It's the first time I've heard of that in terms of the London to New York route. What's inside are stacks of silver bars and gold bars that traders, fearing that tariffs from the U.S. government are imminent, are loading onto planes to rush into America. I mean, if you ask me, this just all starts to look like they're calling home everything. They're bringing everything home, and they're getting ready to batten down the hatches, go full-blown protectionist, at least in the Western Hemisphere, and get ready for war with the Chinese, because the AI arms race is on. That's how I intuitively interpret this. Gold is commonly flown between key trading hubs, including London, New York, Zurich, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. Cheaper, bulkier silver is typically sent by ship, however. But the Trump administration's threats of tariffs have created unprecedented dislocations. U.S. silver futures have spiked to a premium of more than $1 per ounce. That means that you have to pay more to get it, meaning that demand is outpacing the supply, making air freight viable and sending traders rushing to get metals into the U.S. before the new trade measures are announced, according to traders. Gold and copper are also pouring into the U.S. futures, have surged above their international benchmarks since President Donald Trump's election victory in November, creating an opportunity for a handful of trading houses and banks that are capable of moving large volumes of metal into the U.S. at short notice, and huge risks for investors who can't. Nearly 14 million ounces of gold, worth $38 billion, have flowed into the depositories of New York's COMEX Futures Exchange since Election Day. So people are worried about these tariffs. Trump is even threatening to impose tariffs on the European Union. The semiconductor stocks, who knows what the result of that is going to be? They're trying to onshore these high-level semiconductor manufacturing facilities that are incredibly intricate and probably will take a long time to build out. Now, TSMC, one of the biggest companies in Taiwan that manufactures these chips, has already initiated the process of bringing chip manufacturing back to the United States, but it's going to take a long, long time, okay? And a lot can happen. The pace of AI right now is just breakneck speeds, okay? So yeah, prepare. Just keep on prepping. And you know what I would hate to see happen? I have an equal amount of Canadian viewers and American viewers. I've always viewed us as one people, because I always joke about how, you know, we share the same culture, we speak the same language, demographically more or less the same. We have money that used to at least fit inside your pop machines, and vice versa. So don't get caught up in this. They're trying to maybe pit us against each other, and I don't want to see that happening. So understand that when I say U.S. Pax Americana is in its death throes, I'm literally in my brain, I conceive that as Canada being essentially completely intertwined with that. And some Canadians might not agree, but maybe Trump's 4D play is to push Canadians into austerity, so they will force some kind of resolution or revolution that might lead to the harmonization of the Americas in the way that he envisions it, meaning that we do in some way ostensibly become a 51st state. So I don't know, but I'm getting the sense right now that the mainstream media could be capitalizing on all these opportunities to criticize Trump, but they're not for some reason. And this lack of Trump derangement syndrome, which we've become so accustomed to, I don't think is owed to the fact that they're scared, because there's definitely a market for it. When I go on YouTube, and I've always said this, the tables always turn, okay? And what happens is when you win a blowout election, like we pretty much did last time, I mean, not in terms of, okay, was it 51%, 49 or whatever, but more so in terms of just the momentum and the energy of it. When you have that, and then you have all three branches of government leaning right, you're going to see a resurgence in that grassroots sort of liberalism or progressivism that won them the establishment in the first place. Now, the establishment is apolitical. Okay, let's make that abundantly clear. The establishment is not right or left. You remember when everybody was saying, oh, all the tech bros are leftist? You remember that? And whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to the Facebook being the, oh, they're not. It's just about money and power, okay? It's about money and power. That's how I view the world. So I don't view it in terms of Americans and Canadians. On this channel, yeah, I'm called the Canadian Prepper, But, you know, I've often thought of changing the name, but at this point, that would just be foolish. But we're all in this together, okay? And the people in charge are going to leverage whatever comes in order to bolster their power. And the Liberals, do not be fooled. They're going to offer you all sorts of things, but who's going to pay for it? And I'm not even saying this. All I care about is give me the guns and keep taxes down. I'll do everything else. Literally, just do that. Okay? Maybe as I get older, I'll think of a few other things that I care about. But by and large, that's all I want. If the Conservatives are going to offer that, fine. If the Liberals are going to offer that, I'll take them too. But they're not. Okay? Right now, there's a time to pivot right. There's a time to pivot left. And right now, for me in Canada, it's pivoting right because things have swung wildly in that direction. And if we keep going in that direction, we're going around in circles. So we got to even things out a little bit and head to the straightaway, okay? So I hope people don't fall for it, but I think they will. But either way, all of this, okay, my intuition about all this, guys, I just get the sense that they're preparing us for something big, that they know the system is going to crash. And I've been saying this, that they're going to crash it on Trump's watch, but I just get the sense that they know something big is coming. Trudeau knows something big is coming. And everybody's going to deal with it in the only way they know how. Here in Canada, they're going to try to lock everybody down in the way that they typically do, only this time it will be because you have no money and you can't go out and do anything because we're all broke, and, you know, crime's going to go up, and, you know, things could just start getting really, really ugly. And this idea that we're going to miraculously be able to reindustrialize and while we alienate the Chinese who manufacture a lot of the parts that, you know, these buildings and these factories are made of, is just a pipe dream, in my personal opinion. It's going to take years, possibly decades, to bring that stuff online. But you never know. Maybe the wonder boy Elon Musk will be able to take a break from Twitter 24/7 and actually do some work in terms of building out the infrastructure that they're going to need to bring some of these jobs back home. But yeah, I think things are going to get weird. Things are going to get very, very weird. So for all those reasons, if you want to support the channel, CanadianPrepper.com. I'm not saying preparedness anymore because I won back the domain. Go get your gear, CanadianPrepper.com, because I think prices are going to go up soon. I know they're going to go up soon, and it's only a matter of time before we have to pass those on to people, and then the government's going to start, you know, coming after people, and yeah, it's going to get weird, guys. So anyways, try to enjoy your weekend. This will be the last night, I guess, without these tariffs, unless it's all tough talk. You know, we could see some last minute deal brokered in the wee hours of the night, but I think this might actually be it. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around what the hell is going on. If I figure it out, if I have some grand epiphany in the middle of the night, I'll let you know. Okay, thanks, bye.